So my second operation day came around. I had to go into hospital. Obviously it wasn't done in my living room. I knew it was going to be a really long day. I was already so tired from the shows and everything. I was just kind of like, I've got weeks to sit around now, it doesn't matter. I really hated this day because I had to get this dye injected around where the mole had been. Obviously it was going into where I'd just had an operation, so that wasn't nice. They inject this dye into you where the cancer was, and it will show up in your lymph nodes. It like makes them glow basically. It's like a special dye that you can see under the scan, and I had to have it injected. That wasn't nice and it really hurt. So then I had to go and walk around for an hour to make sure the dye was, moving and things. And then I had to go back and I had to be scanned, and the lymph nodes that the cancer would go to first would light up. And in this room, I couldn't bring anyone because of the radiation, so I just had to lie under this thing for about 40 minutes. It felt like 40 minutes, I might be exaggerating, sorry if I am, but it felt like about 40 minutes. And the nurse would just come over and put a dot on me where the lymph nodes were. So that was horrible because it was just like, oh, it might be there, it might be there, it was not nice to see that. So that was really horrible because I was on my own. I wasn't able to, turn to someone and be like speaking to them. Obviously the doctors and nurses, they were really lovely, but I just wanted someone there with me and I couldn't have that. I went up to my room then and just had to wait to go down for my operation. I was going to be asleep for this one because it was going to be a bigger one. So on this operation they went into my groin and they took 5 lymph nodes out. They also went back into where the mole had been and they took a lot more skin out to make sure that there weren't any cancer cells in the skin surrounding where the mole had been. Because they'd taken so much skin off my ankle, I had to have another skin graft. So this is again going to get graphic. I know there's been graphic bits like through it, and I'm sorry I haven't warned you properly, but it was a graphic time. They took off a thin piece of skin from my thigh and they put it through this machine that turned into like a mesh. Then they sew that onto where you've had the skin taken off, and it's kind of like that, and then all the new skin grows in the holes and it makes it less likely to reject the skin because it's able to breathe and things. It's really clever, loved it. So I didn't actually see any of my like operation sites, is that what you call them? Yeah, I didn't see my ankle until my dressings had to be changed and I had to have the stitches removed because these ones weren't dissolvable. And honestly, that was the worst pain I've ever felt. It was like an itchy pain, like getting a tattoo, but it was really sharp and all my nerves were messed up around my ankle, so it made me want to kick, if that makes sense. Like when you get a nerve and your foot just goes woo. So sometimes after operations your body can go into a bit of a shock because it's not used to being cut open. So around where they'd taken my lymph nodes out, like the top of my leg, I had all my stitches there, but the fluid would gather behind it and there was too much that was gathering just because my leg was trying to get used to what had gone on, and it kind of made the scar like puff up a bit. So I can't even describe it. It was just like that. It looked like I had a willy, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie. But they said to me that that would go down probably eventually. It just needed to get used to it. So yeah, that was all building up and it kept kind of getting bigger and bigger. I had a really, really horrible time. It was at my auntie's birthday and hers, and she had all the family around. We were all sat around a big table just having drinks and crisps and things. And my niece was 3 at the time and she had gone under the table, and when kids like don't quite get how big the table is, so she'd gone under and then she went to come out, but she was still like this much under the table, so she was like banging her head and she started crying because she couldn't get out. So I jumped under the table and like was going to pull her out, and then there was like water all over the floor. So at first I thought I'd knocked a drink over, so I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then my other auntie was like, oh, she's wet herself, like messing. And I was like, oh my god, what if I have? And literally for about 30 seconds I was like, because we were trying to figure out what had gone on, I was like, the operations messed with my body and now I've got no control of my bladder, what am I gonna do? This is horrific. So I literally thought that for a bit, and then Matty just went, it's your scar. And I was like, what do you mean? And then I kind of went, oh. We went into the kitchen and the scar on my groin had bust open, and it only bust open maybe like this bit, but it was enough for all the water that had been building out to have just come out, and it was horrible. So I just rang the doctors or the hospital, I can't remember who I would ring, said, you know, this has happened, what do I do? And she just said, you know, it should just go back to normal, like it should heal, but you're coming in anyway. I think it was coming in like 4 days for a checkup anyway. This is gross as well. It never completely healed. Water build up behind it. I'd like sit up to get out of bed and it'd pop, and it was just water was coming out of the scar. It was never as much as the first time, but it was still quite a lot. And over that period of time was Matty's birthday and we went for a meal in town. I shouldn't have really gone, but at the time I was like, I knew that if the results weren't completely clear then I'd have to go and get an operation that would probably cut into my stomach, so I was like, I'm going everywhere. After my dressing change I remember having a scan just to make sure that all of that was clear. I remember tidying my room and my doctor rang me, it was a Friday, and I remember he was saying like, oh, I just wanted to let you know your scan's clear. I thought it'd be a nice start to your weekend, and obviously it was made up to hear from him, it was so kind of him to ring me, but I just remember being like, I didn't know I had a scan. I couldn't remember having it at all, and then I kind of realised that I was like fully disconnecting myself. And yeah, because I hate scans, like scans are the worst, I always constantly think about them, but at that time there was just so much going on, I wasn't waiting for those results, I was so preoccupied with my operation ones. Around this time was when my panic attacks went up like really bad, like every time I'd shut my eyes to go to sleep I'd panic. Matty would constantly have to like list the positives to me of everything. He'd have to go over all the good things that the doctors were saying, and you know, anything that was slightly good he'd have to tell me back because I couldn't keep them in my head, or just the negative was pushing all the good stuff out. So he was really lovely. He'd literally just spend hours just being like, oh, you know, they said it's in the bin, they said this is all just to keep you safe, this is all just to make sure you're okay for the future because you're still young, blah blah blah. And that was really helpful, but it still wasn't fun to be having them in the first place. Like I just couldn't relax, couldn't chill. I'd be shaking like constantly, couldn't think about anything else. Any like family occasions I'd have to go upstairs and have a minute because I'd always have that thought being like, this could be the, like, not the last time, but I was like, oh my god, I've taken these moments for granted just for so long, and it just wasn't a nice feeling. Like everything was negative for me at that time. My second results day came and it was the most scary wait I've ever had, I think, because the clinic was running behind, so we had to wait 45 minutes before we actually saw someone, like 45 minutes after my time. I think we always get there early as well. My dad's one of the airport dads that gets there at like 5 in the morning, so for the doctors we would have been there early. So we had to wait for absolutely ages, and I remember like I just kept like going low just for like something else to do, and I was stood there and I was like literally like shaking like this much, just waiting to go in. It's horrible. Luckily we got the second best news we could have got that day, which was that unfortunately it had spread, but it had spread to 3 out of the 5 lymph nodes, which means the top 2 were clear, so it was on its way to be doing something horrible, but hopefully didn't get that far. There were microscopic cancer cells in 3 of the 5, so that's like the tiniest bit you could ask for. So to me, I was like, that's the second best news. I was like, I think that's like the most positive I felt in like months. So I was really happy about that, and I was like, you know, I'd expected so much worse. It's like, it's still not nice, but you know, what can you do? I just had to look at like the good bits at that time. Because I was only 21 at the time, they really wanted me to go through an aggressive operation, and the operation would remove all of the lymph nodes in like the right side of my body, obviously not like here, but from me groin down. They wanted me to like get rid of them all. So basically if something came back, it'd be trapped in my leg and it couldn't travel, like my body wouldn't be spreading it everywhere, which is fine by me. Really good idea, really good thing to do. And yeah, made up they did it. What they'd have to do was they'd have to cut through like my stomach muscles and things and get like all the lymph nodes out. And I think there's about like 40 odd and they're about the size of lentils, so they have to like really go in for them. It would have been like a bigger recovery time. I wouldn't be able to walk properly for, you know, a good few weeks. So I was kind of trying to take advantage of like the time I had that I could walk around and things. Around this time as well, because we knew that it was just microscopic and I'd more than likely be okay in the future. I told people on like social media and that, I put a post up just being like, this is what's been going on. He said I'd probably be okay. Yeah, my family and friends like already knew, like close friends, but I didn't really want people to change how they were around me because I know it's kind of an uncomfortable situation. So I didn't want everyone to know, and while I wasn't okay, I didn't want people worrying about me. I just preferred to tell them when I knew what was going on, because before this I had no idea. My third operation came round. I'm getting quite the collection now, and it was one that I'd have to stay in a hospital for, which I really didn't want to do. Like I was not into staying in a hospital, didn't want to. They gave me a room, which was so lovely of them, and Matty, bless him, stayed on 2 chairs that were pushed together. He's like 6'1", and he stayed on 2 of the like chairs you get in school to stay with me overnight, and it was just dead sweet. As I said before, they had to like cut through my stomach muscles, so when I woke up I was in agony and I was on like a morphine drip, and I remember like having that twice. You're like, you know, there's the clicker. I did that twice, and then I was like, hang on, if I'm relying too much on painkillers, it might extend the time that I was there. So I didn't take any more painkillers. Like I just wouldn't take them. Not too bad with handling pain as long as like I'm in the right position and I didn't have to move. This is another pretty horrible thing. I had to have a drain in my leg because of the water buildup that had been going on, and they were expected to have it again, which it did. I had a drain in my leg, and it was like a little bucket thing, I don't know if that's what you call it, that I had to like carry around basically, and that would like vacuum basically all the stuff out my leg. It was just horrible. I had to show the hospital I could walk up and down the stairs and walk properly before I could go home, and I was like doubled over. It was really, really sore, but it was because my muscles had all been cut, so yeah, it wasn't nice. I remember being able to go home. It was, I think I only stayed for 2 nights, and then I was able to ring my dad. He came and got me, because the hospital I think would have kept me in for about a week, the first thought, but because I had people at home that they knew would look after me, I was there every day with people, and they were really nice. That on one of the nights I remember they let people stay till like 11 because we weren't being allowed. I was in my own room, we weren't disturbing anyone, but I know that like my sisters and everyone stayed for a bit longer, and it was just nice. So yeah, I went home. I had to have the drain in for a while. Then I had a dressing change like a week after. The tube on the drain was cut, and it was attached to, it was like a bag on me leg that I had to empty every day, and I had to measure it, and I had to send it to the cancer nurse, and she was basically like keeping a look, seeing how much fluid was in it, and the fluid just basically wouldn't go down. So she was saying, she was just like, you know, you'll have to get the tube out soon, otherwise it's going to get infected if it's in for any longer, because it had been in for like 3 weeks and it was just not nice. I had a bit of plastic sticking out my leg for that long. So I had to have that taken out. I went in to see her, and she took the tube out, which was not nice at all either, but to be fair, I've got no nerves really in my leg anymore, so I could barely feel it, but I could feel it, if that makes sense. You can feel things coming out, but you can't feel the touch. It's really strange. But she took that out. I just had like a little bag stuck on then, and eventually I'd be able to take that off, and then the hole would just heal naturally, which I've always found really weird. I don't get how it does it, but it does. A few days after that, I had my hospital appointment come through for me third set of results to see if all of the other lymph nodes were clear, and I was really scared about this because I was just kind of like, it'd be such a shame if they, you know, the other two were clear but somehow it had got round and it was, you know, everywhere. So I was really nervous about that, like so scared. And I remember I had to text Debbie in the morning to say, I think I was either giving her a measurement of me drain thing or something else, and I remember she rang me and she was like, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm good, just really nervous about my results, I don't really know what to do, I'm so scared, like what if it's bad news? And she just said, well, you shouldn't be scared about it because all the lymph nodes were clear. And I just went, what? And I just started crying, and it was like the best news. Like I was so happy, and I just remember like shrieking and just being really excited. And then I was just like, oh, thank you, oh my god, I'm gonna go and tell everyone. And I got to go and tell Matty. I ran down and I couldn't even think straight because I was so excited, and I was like, Matty, it's gone. And he was just so excited too. Then I got to like ring my mum and dad. Basically everyone had given the bad news to a few months before. I got to like tell them the good news that they were on top of it and they'd caught it, and as far as they know it was out my system. So that was like absolutely amazing to be able to do that because it's caused so much upset. I was so happy that there wouldn't be any more big operations. Like we went for a steak that night and a drink. We met my mum and dad after work, and Matty's dad came to see us, and it was just really nice. So then I'd be on checkups for the next 5 years, and during the checkups I'd have a dermatology appointment, which they'd check my skin, they'd look at me moles through little, what are they called, like little telescope thingies, make sure like nothing was going wrong. I'm not very moly anyway, I've got quite a few freckles but not moles, so they'd just check that. Then on my plastic surgery appointment they'd you know, feel down my leg and all the areas just for any lumps or anything horrible, make sure, you know, I was doing okay. So that was going to be me for the next 5 years.